jump, you could tell that his balance was off. He was reaching. You know, he just didn't have it tonight.
You know, do you think it was a layoff? Do you think it was a combination of things? Like, what do you think?
Probably all of it.
All of it?
He didn't take the punches well. He was slow. Like, you could just tell that Tim was more fresher.
Was it hard for you to watch?
Kinda, you know, I really wanted him to do real well. He did what he had to do to finish the fight, though. You know.
Hopefully he comes over here.
Come on, Errol. All the best, Errol. You're a legend, mate. God bless.
I think he announced that he's not going to fight in the ring anymore. Obviously, you think that's the right decision based on what you saw here tonight, right?
Yeah, he's been in a lot of wars, you know, with his fighting style. Come forward, take some punishment, dish some punishment, and try to break somebody down. That type of style, you know, it don't even go so far.
From the opening bell, Errol Spence versus Tszyu looked nothing like a fighter easing his way back after 3 years away. Spence came out sharp, immediately establishing the jab and using that straight left to keep Tszyu from simply walking into range.
Well done, brother. Well done. Well done, Jeffrey.
For about 117 to 111.
117 what? 0.
The winner is Tszyu, guys.
Well, Tszyu, we know the journey that you have been on in recent years, and now you've arrived.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, I saw your tweet saying that the body language just wasn't there also.
Yeah, like I said, you know, he was all balanced, you know, and he just didn't have it tonight.
On the flip side, what'd you think of how Tim fought?
Tim did what Tim had to do to get the victory.
Yeah.
He was patient, and he went well to the body, and you know, he threw the right hand, landed the right hand when he had to, and he got the job done.
How does he match up now with the guys at 54 or 60, guys like Boots, guys like Virgil Ortiz, in your opinion, Terrence?
I don't see him coming back down to 154. He looked real strong at 160, so we'll see him with Carlos Adames and all those guys.
But Tim didn't travel 30 minutes from home to spend the night admiring Errol's technique. He kept pressing, attacking the body, closing space, and forcing Spence into the kind of physical exchanges everyone expected. The early rounds belonged to strategy, but somewhere in the middle, strategy started turning into survival of momentum.
You know, I was starving myself to get to 154, and I feel a big difference at 160. I feel like, yeah, I just feel much stronger, you know. One of my big things is strength, being able to bully my opponents, and I felt like that's what I did. I was actually a bit in shock. I thought, you know, Errol Spence was a legend again, but how I felt in front of him just felt completely different. Probably from round 3 onwards. And then I really felt like I could stop him at one stage. But then again, he knows how to bounce back.
Every time Spence appeared to settle into that familiar rhythm, Tszyu would close the distance and drag him back into uncomfortable territory. Then, just when Tim seemed ready to take control, Errol would change the angle, fire a combination, and suddenly the entire arena had another reason to stand up.
But again, he was on survival half the time. He was running around. I was touching him up to the body. I think that was a big difference. Every time I hit him straight right to the body, he was going, you know, and sort of like me and him are the only ones that can hear that. And his body shots, they weren't landing. I was sort of catching. I was very well aware of it. My thing was to catch, shoot. That's all we practiced for the first 3 rounds. In my first, I've been dropped 4 times, I think 3 times in the first round. So my thing is, I get too excited very quickly, so I need to slow it down and be able to, take the fight nice and slowly. So that's why I was just like, you know what, think of defense first, and then the offense will go from that.
Neither man could completely impose his style. Spence had the cleaner boxing and veteran adjustments, while Tszyu brought relentless pressure and refused to let the pace settle. By the championship rounds, fatigue was showing, but neither fighter was interested in protecting what he thought he had already done. They were still trading momentum, still answering each other's best moments, and still giving the judges plenty to think about.
I don't know, I gotta rewatch it, man. I don't recall. Oh, yes. But look, he's still fresh. It could have been just a little bit off. But yeah, he was, what was it like? Yeah, I just sort of chased him. Sort of what I did to Jeff Horn in the first round, if you guys remember.
The final round felt less like round 12 and more like both men realizing there were 3 minutes left to settle months of predictions. Then the final bell sounded. Spence raised his arms. Tszyu believed he'd done enough. The Australian crowd erupted, both corners started celebrating, and suddenly everyone was staring toward the judges. After everything these two had just put each other through, only one question remained: whose name was about to be called?
Like, he was strong, but like, I don't know, it was nothing like I've never felt before.
As the fight progressed, did you feel that he was fatigued?
Yeah, I could feel it. When I was hitting him in the body, I could feel him really slowing down. And I remember the face he had during Crawford, and he had the same face. It was like bruised up, and his eyes were swollen. His nose was busted from round 2. The straight right was really landing. I was trying to mix it up from head body. I was trying to just get rid of his front hand and his jab, just one of his biggest keys.
And if that fight had everybody arguing about what they just watched, Roy Jones Jr.'s reaction only made the conversation more interesting. Roy looked at Spence versus Tszyu like a fighter who understands that sometimes the biggest battle isn't against the man standing across from you, it's against timing itself. What impressed him about Errol was how quickly he settled into the fight after 3 years away. Roy pointed toward the jab, the patience, and those little veteran adjustments that allowed Spence to control moments without wasting energy. But he wasn't ignoring Tim either. Roy gave Tszyu credit for constantly applying pressure and refusing to let Errol turn the night into a comfortable boxing lesson. That's where Roy felt the fight became fascinating, because Tim kept asking physical questions while Spence kept trying to answer them with experience.
Now, on top of that, with the accident, you got thrown from a car doing an excess of 100 miles an hour. Your body's not the same. I don't give a damn what nobody tell me. You understand me? Say what you want to say, his body can't be the same. So for him to even take the fight says a lot. Because don't tell me you got thrown out of a vehicle doing over 100 miles an hour and you okay, you sane. You're not. Look at the color of the blood on his face last night. His face got crazy right away. And I told my people, I said, that's gotta be from plastic surgery. I ain't never seen my face turn that color that early in a fight.
One round would have you thinking Errol had figured out the puzzle, then Tim would come storming back and suddenly we're rewriting the scorecard again. Roy also made the point that you can't judge Spence entirely against the version we remember from years ago. After that much time away, the real question was whether he could still think, adjust, and perform when somebody was genuinely forcing the pace. Well, Tszyu certainly gave him that test. Roy believed both fighters showed something important. Tim proved he could stand across from an elite veteran and keep demanding more, while Errol showed that championship instincts don't simply disappear because the calendar keeps moving. And that's why Roy's reaction fits this fight perfectly. Forget comparing Errol to his prime for a second. Look at what happened inside those 12 rounds. Two fighters arrived with completely different questions hanging over them, and by the final bell, somehow they had answered plenty while giving the boxing world even more to argue about.
Never seen Errol have to make a change. Errol's just always pressure, and that's what got him everywhere. So he hasn't made no change. So people mad at me about that, but that's just what the truth is. You understand me? That's just what the truth is. So I hate that people get mad when you tell the truth, but that's wrong. That's what's wrong with the world today. Nobody wants to hear the truth. Everybody get mad and take it personal. when you tell the truth. Man, I love Dallas. Dallas loves me. I love Errol because Errol is a, look what he accomplished. He went to Olympics. That's a brotherhood. How can I not like Errol?
Roy Jones Jr. saw the fight through the details, but David Benavidez looked at Spence versus Tszyu and came away impressed by something much simpler. Neither man wanted to surrender an inch. Benavidez loved the intensity because this wasn't one of those fights where two names finally meet and then spend 12 rounds being overly cautious. Tim came to apply pressure, exactly as promised, and David gave him credit for having the confidence to keep pushing toward a fighter as experienced as Spence, even when Errol was catching him on the way inside. But Benavidez was equally impressed with Spence because 3 years outside the ring is supposed to make you hesitant. Errol didn't fight like somebody asking permission to be elite again. He stood his ground when necessary, worked behind the jab, attacked when the openings appeared, and showed that Tim wasn't going to overwhelm him simply by increasing the pace. That's the part Benavidez kept coming back to.
It was a great fight, man. Fireworks from round 1 to round 12, literally. He's gotten some good shots. I think Errol Spence caught up and he did his second wind kicked in. He's landing great body shots, vicious vicious overhand lefts, vicious overhand rights. It was a great fight, man. I really enjoyed it, but it was definitely a great performance on Errol Spence's part.
Were you surprised by Errol Spence's tactics tonight? Just putting his forehead in, slugging it out?
No, I mean, that's really kind of Errol Spence's style. He was doing great, but it was just nothing he could do because his eye was swollen and messed up, and, you know, he had to be stopped. They had to stop it for his own good.
You can train for months, look incredible on the pads, and tell everybody you're ready. But nobody knows what remains until another world-class fighter starts testing you for real. Tszyu provided that test immediately. Benavidez also liked how quickly the momentum could change. Tim would force Spence backward and get the Australian crowd roaring. Then Errol would answer with something clean, and suddenly the entire rhythm shifted again. No comfortable rounds, no cruise control, just two fighters constantly trying to steal control from each other. And coming from Benavidez, a guy whose entire identity is built around pressure and volume, you know he appreciated seeing Tim refuse to disappear when things got difficult. But he also understood why Spence's composure mattered so much. Pressure can make fighters rush decisions. Errol kept making Tim earn everything. For Benavidez, that was the beauty of the fight. Tszyu brought the storm. Spence refused to get swept away, and neither man left the ring looking like the same fighter who entered it.
He was doing great, but it was just nothing he could do because his eye was swollen and messed up, and, you know, he had to be stopped. They had to stop it for his own good. But I was more impressed than anything. You know, he definitely has a heart of a lion.
When we saw Spence get rocked, were you at all concerned that might end up in a knockdown, if not a knockout?
No, I mean, I wasn't concerned. Maybe they were, but, you know, this is boxing. Sometimes you get hit with shots and sometimes you get rocked. It's just how you come back, and he came back like a champion.
Benavidez appreciated the pressure and physical battle, but Jaron Ennis watched Spence versus Tszyu through a completely different lens. Boots was paying attention to the tiny adjustments, because when you've got two fighters trying to control the same space, sometimes one half step tells you more than 20 punches. Ennis was impressed by how Spence handled those moments after such a long absence. 3 years away should affect timing, distance, and reactions, yet Errol still found ways to make Tszyu hesitate before charging into range. Boots knows that game better than most. A jab isn't always thrown to land clean. Sometimes it's there to freeze you for half a second, move your feet, and suddenly the opening you thought you had is gone. But Ennis wasn't giving Tim anything less than full credit either. He liked the way Tszyu kept forcing the issue instead of allowing Spence to dictate everything at his preferred tempo. Tim made Errol work. He made him think.
Anybody else would have tried to knock him out. Something like that happened, so. I mean, it's cool to be nice and all, but at the end of the game, it's boxing. You know, you got to protect yourself at all times.
When you watch a fight like that against two potential opponents, are you looking for like holes that you can capitalize, or are you just watching it as a fan?
I just be watching. I already know what I can do. When I get in there, I know I'm gonna be able to bring anybody down and outsmart anybody. So I just gotta do me, you know.
More importantly, he kept testing whether those veteran instincts would still function once the fight became exhausting. That's where Boots felt we learned something real about Spence. Gym stories are nice, training footage looks great, but reacting correctly when somebody is coming after you round after round is a completely different conversation. Ennis also noticed that Errol wasn't trying to recreate some younger version of himself. He fought the fight happening in front of him, and that's veteran intelligence. Tim, meanwhile, showed why writing him off based on previous setbacks was always too easy. He kept adjusting his entries and searching for ways around the jab instead of simply following Spence across the ring. Benavidez saw a battle of wills. Boots saw a battle measured in inches, and when those two things collided, we got exactly the kind of fight that reminds you why predictions look much easier before the opening bell.
Late round or something like that, but I don't know. It was a good fight. You know, Spence did what he's supposed to do. Same thing. Looked good.
Now, there was like a little miscommunication with the mouthpiece. Like Spence went down to look for it and then got hit. Like, what was your thoughts on that?
I don't know what he was doing. I think he said it was his fault or something like that. But Ugo hasn't had no killer instinct. Anybody else would have tried to knock him out.
Jaron Ennis was watching the inches, the timing, and the adjustments. But Teddy Atlas came away from Spence versus Tszyu thinking about something boxing fans had debated for 3 years. What happens when uncertainty finally meets reality? Teddy had been one of the loudest voices questioning Spence's inactivity before this fight, and after watching those rounds unfold, he had to acknowledge that Errol answered questions no training video could answer. Teddy focused on the mental side of it. Spence wasn't just dealing with Tim's pressure. He was dealing with 3 years of people wondering whether the fighter they remembered even existed anymore. That's a different opponent entirely. What impressed Teddy was that when Tszyu started having success and the crowd came alive, Spence didn't suddenly abandon the plan and start fighting emotionally. He stayed composed, trusted his experience.
It got to a point where Spence, you could see it. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. He was afraid to come, and I don't mean afraid in a way of courage, but as far as common sense, as far as he was hesitant to come forward because he knew when he did, he walked into the sausage grinder. So he waited. He's like, if I come forward, I'm gonna get counted.
And understood that one difficult stretch didn't mean the whole night was slipping away. But Teddy also gave Tim serious credit because Tszyu never allowed this to become some comfortable comeback celebration. He kept demanding answers. Every time Errol appeared settled, Tim brought another wave of pressure and forced him back into the argument. Teddy loved that because in his eyes, this fight wasn't really about who looked prettier doing the work. It was about who could keep making decisions when fatigue, pressure, and doubt were all sitting at the same table. And that's where the fight became much more revealing than Teddy expected. Spence showed that inactivity hadn't erased his instincts, while Tszyu showed that setbacks hadn't taken away his belief. Teddy had questioned whether 3 years could steal too much from Errol. By the end of this one, the conversation had changed completely. We weren't asking what Spence had lost anymore. We were arguing about exactly how much he still had left.
But then when he didn't come forward, then he got beat to the punch with the long jab or with combinations behind it. You know, timed perfectly. So, again, he was damned if he did, damned if he didn't. You know, where he literally had him coming and going. I had said that it was going to start with the jab for both guys, and it did. The jab set the pace, set the tempo.
Teddy Atlas walked away thinking about what the fight revealed, but Greg Hackett looked at Spence versus Tszyu and immediately started separating reputation from what actually happened inside that ring. Greg's reaction was basically forget the old highlight reels for a minute, because Tim wasn't fighting the Errol Spence from the Kell Brook or Sean Porter nights. He was fighting the version standing in front of him right now, and Hackett felt that made every exchange worth studying. What surprised him was how quickly Spence found his competitive rhythm. There were moments where Tim tried to crowd him, make him uncomfortable, and turn the whole thing into his kind of fight, but Errol didn't panic when the pressure arrived. Greg pointed out that experience shows up differently when a fighter gets older. Maybe you're not winning every exchange with pure speed anymore, but you know when to answer, when to move, and when to make the other guy pay for getting greedy.
He affected that eye early on, probably like in the 4th round, the eye started changing, and then he started, you know what I mean, he was just working. I mean, Errol Spence is a workhorse, and Errol Spence doesn't bring all the crazy special effects to the fight, but what he does is he does bring is a great determination. You know what I'm saying? He's super determined, and he's gonna do what he gotta do, which is he trying to beat you up.
Tim found that out more than once. Still, Hackett wasn't handing out participation trophies to Spence just because he returned after 3 years. He gave Tszyu plenty of respect for refusing to treat Errol like some untouchable legend. Tim kept coming, kept challenging him, and made Spence prove that the comeback was more than a good training camp and confident interviews. That's what Greg appreciated most. Neither guy was allowed to hide behind his resume. Errol had to show what remained, while Tim had to show whether he could handle that level of experience when the fight stopped going exactly according to plan. Hackett also felt the performance should kill some of the lazy narratives surrounding both men. Spence wasn't automatically finished because he lost to Crawford, and Tszyu wasn't suddenly ordinary because he'd taken setbacks. Boxing fans love turning one bad night into a career obituary. Greg wasn't buying it. After this fight, he saw two men who still had plenty to say, and they said it with their gloves instead of asking us to believe the hype.
I don't think his chin ever been questionable because we seen him hit before. We seen him get hit, and this is in great shape, and he won the fight. So, like I said, because he know in his mind, in Errol Spence's mind, he know you don't want to fight. If you do want to fight, you don't want to fight this way, where I'm constantly in your face and I'm beating you up.
So after hearing Roy Jones Jr., David Benavidez, Jaron Ennis, Teddy Atlas, and Greg Hackett break this fight down from completely different angles, one thing is obvious: Spence versus Tszyu gave everybody something different to argue about. Roy saw the veteran intelligence, Benavidez loved the pressure and willingness to stand firm. Boots noticed the small technical adjustments, Teddy focused on the mental battle, and Hackett refused to let either man's reputation decide what his eyes were seeing. But now I want to hear from you. Did Errol Spence show enough after 3 years away to prove he can still compete with boxing's best? Or did Tim Tszyu expose signs that the old Spence isn't completely coming back? And after what you just watched, where do both fighters go from here? Drop your take in the comments and debate it out, because I already know those scorecards are about to start arguments. And yo, don't ever forget to like, share, and subscribe to Boxing Headquarters. I'll see you in the next one.